Hello, everyone. Today is July 26th, 2023. My guest today is Mezzo, otherwise known as William Nguyen. William is a musician. Thanks for coming on the podcast, William.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Looking forward to it too. So, how did you begin an interest in music, or when did you start playing music?
I had an interest in music when I want to say the first memory that I can recall was at 3 years old. At 3 years old, I tried to write my own songs, and
Wow.
they were so horrendously terrible that my family still brings it up today. They still know a couple of them. But that's where the interest started. And I guess it really blossomed in middle school, where I was able to pick up a guitar and actually I gotta rewind a bit. Starting in elementary school, I took a little bit more of a classical route. Started off with the cello, played the cello for a few years. Beautiful instrument, still arguably my favorite instrument of all time. Played a little piano, wasn't too great at it. And then got to middle school, found out about people like Jason Mraz and Bruno Mars when he was getting started up. Very singer-songwriter-y. And so I was like, I want to learn the guitar, I want to learn the ukulele. And so I think from there was when I really started to sing a lot. And that was the very beginning. And then, fast forward however many years, 24 now. And I've been making music since I was about 17. So I guess the passion has always been there.
Nice. And what's the reason cello is your favorite?
I think the more I get into music, the more I have an appreciation for the lower end of a full production or a full song. The instruments that carry the rhythm, things like bass and even like the drums, they go underappreciated. But cello specifically, it really carries that rhythm. And also, I think strings in general, but cello specifically, produces the most beautiful sound that any instrument can make.
Wow. Okay. But when you got to middle school, you were influenced by artists like Jason Mraz and Bruno Mars to step into other realms. But you also played piano as well.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So as me by myself exploring, it was very easy to access. I'm Yours was like the biggest song ever. And it was easy. I was like, oh, you can play this good song on guitar easily. So that's where I got started. And I always wanted to sing. And then it's very interesting because at the same time, I had my brother, who you know very well. He showed me so much music. My brother, and then my friend and his family, my best friend and his family. I grew up listening to hip hop and R&B with them, like old school stuff, and then early 2000s. So I had a little bit of that. I had a lot of that blend. But then through my brother, starting in middle school, I was listening to artists like Kid Cudi, who is still one of my biggest inspirations today. I just think he really knows how to turn music into art. So really, really weird blend. But I think my background comes from hip hop, R&B, singer-songwriter, and then classic rock from my dad. Somehow put all of that together and add some things on the way, and then you kind of can see bits and pieces of that I take as inspiration in my music today.
And do you say that you pick up different forms of inspiration and your music has evolved since you've started?
Yeah, definitely. I think as anybody is in the beginning, when you're trying to learn something new, you want to kind of copy your idols, and easily it could be, I told you those were the people at the time, and then it evolved to a high school. I went through phases of electronic music, trance music. My brother showed me that as well. Super interesting. And then I went to like a pop punk phase, and then kind of came to more of where I am now. And those are artists like Still Kid Cudi, Mac Miller, Felly. You may not know him, but he's an LA local. Kind of blew up at USC, and he kind of evolved from an artist, more of like a rapper, into a real artist. He's playing all the instruments, he's producing everything by himself or with a close-knit group, and he's mixing and mastering. He's doing it all by himself, and that's really where I would love to get to one day. As an inspiration, as a musician, as an artist, he's somebody I look up to a lot. So you kind of put all those together, and you can definitely see bits and pieces of that in my music.
Okay. Wow. And you yourself, you do not stick to one instrument, and you're not just vocals, are you?
So I am blessed enough to have a really talented team around me. I definitely don't consider myself a producer, though I have. I've been branching out as of this year. That's why I moved out to LA. That's one part of it. I moved out to LA this year to make that happen. And I can get into later other things that changed in my life recently to get to that point. But I have to really get, when I really got serious about this, there were two specific producers, Matt Mems and Lucid Pete, who really got me into a group that I could really work with extensively. So I'm in there every session. And fortunately enough, they already have had success in the industry. Matt Mems, as a solo artist, has seen some success, and as well as working with an artist called Aries, who actually came out of Elisa Nagel as well. There's a really cool story about that. But they made music together, and they're still tight. They still make music together. So I got to see people like Aries as an inspiration. And as of most recently, my good buddy totally blew up on TikTok last year with his song called Sunroof. His name is Nicky Orr. And seeing somebody really close to me like that do it has been probably the most inspiring thing. Like I see someone that I knew, and it's going back to middle school, those singer-songwriter, those kind of lovey, cheesy songs. It was me and him. We would be in class singing it together, and then now looking at him just doing crazy things, and it's been so good. I think about him. I'm like, okay, he did it, and it's definitely something that I feel like I can do too.
That's amazing that you have that inspiration and that you have it so close to you.
Yeah, I feel blessed, to say the least.
And you mentioned you had to go out to LA, and I had a comedian on the podcast, Keon Sarlacc, and he said the same thing. He says, you got to be in LA if you want to actually, meet the people that you have to meet and then progress within this. For him, it was comedy, and for you, it's music.
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't skeptical. I knew it would definitely help me out, but I just didn't know to what extent. So I guess a little bit more background. Like I definitely, as you probably know, my family takes school very seriously, and the general Orange County path of get good grades, go to a good college, and then get a good job. That's kind of where I always was. I went to UC Santa Barbara, studied economics and Italian, and then I went into marketing for a tech startup for 2 years until literally maybe a month and a half ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's been two worlds at one time, but one of the reasons I felt like I had to, just fully go for this, fully send the music thing, was I moved out here to LA, and I saw the potential of opportunities, but a lot of them slipped through because I was like, oh, a lot of these studio sessions that you somehow find your way and you meet these people, or going out networking, that happens really late at night, and also on the weekdays. And so when I was working full time, I was just tired. All I had time to do was work, and then I would eat dinner, try to do something with my body, like physical, to like, you know, at least like, because otherwise I'm sitting in the studio, in the office all day. So, and then working on music, all I had the time to do was make new music. And what I've really been working on lately is the business aspect of it, which is like, you know, really thinking of music as a job. And so I decided, yeah, like about a month and a half ago, to leave the industry, the tech industry, come where I am now. I have no idea where it's going to take me, but I feel really good about it. And I feel like I have the most opportunities I can to reach my potential. And so in the past 2 months, my life has definitely changed. I met a bunch of people. I've even got some opportunities already. And so I'm really doing my best to kind of capitalize on that.
That's a huge leap. I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I understand what you mean. It's you can't really be as invested as you'd like to be when, you know, 4 days out of the week you're committing a lot of brain power to,
Yeah.
I mean, tech startup life. That's not a simple thing.
Yeah, not at all. And it definitely got to a point, I think, for the first year to year and a half, that's the shift slowly, the focus slowly shifted to that side of my life, because I definitely enjoyed my job. Which was interesting too, because a lot of people I know my age don't really like their job. I felt like I had a good team, good bosses. I had two throughout my time there, and I definitely didn't hate my job at all. But like you said, you know, it can be very demanding. And once I really got back, and I was like, okay, time to focus on music. This is what I really want to do. It got to a point where I was like, okay, you know, I'm the money is super nice, blah blah blah, but like now I really want to focus on music. And then I realized, like, I got to this kind of middle ground where I was half living two lives, and it kind of bummed me out, because I'm very driven, and I was very driven in school and in the workplace. And I was like, you know, I was still doing well, but I was like, I could really be on that side of things. I could be climbing, like I could be doing really, really well. I really think I have it in me, but I don't think that's what I really want to do. So I peeled back, and I was thinking about the music stuff. I'm like, is this hindering me from reaching my potential in music? And I think the answer was yes. And one of the reasons I saw that was moving out to LA. Like, you can really tell it's a different world out here. And OC was amazing. It's still one of my favorite places on earth, but I just got so comfortable. Like, life was like so perfect. So I got into that spot where I was like, oh, everything's okay. You know, my music wasn't taking off or anything like that, but I was like, you know, my paycheck's coming in. I'm happy. I get to make music, which is always important. You gotta at least love that. That's like the foundation of this whole thing. You gotta really love your craft. So I at least had that, but I reached a point where I was like, you know, I gotta go get uncomfortable and make some moves. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And two things on that. I actually read a book, or sorry, no, I didn't. I watched a video just today, like a 2-minute TED talk, and the guy was saying one of the best things to prevent like brain decay was going out, doing really challenging things, talking to a bunch of people, like doing these, like being socially integrated in a very engaged way.
And
Which,
yeah, I cannot agree to that more.
It seems like that's what you've done by, you know, taking this leap into the industry, like full on.
Yeah, and you know, to get to that point, there's a lot of pride, and I think, you know, most people know there's a lot of pride in musicians and artists and creatives in general. And I definitely had to get at a point where I was like, you know, I gotta throw some of that pride away. I had to throw away my, you know, quote unquote status, you know, that like a worldly status, you know, of like, it was super easy to introduce myself. Oh yeah, you know, work in tech. And then people will automatically assume some things about you. And and then I've been kind of trying to shed all of that off of me, and get to, you know, the foundation of what I am and what I think I should be doing on this earth. And that has been a journey, and it's been very humbling, and it's been amazing. Part of that too was back in high school when we started. We was a group of three of us. We saw some success right away as newbies, which was like it kind of gave us, me, I think especially, kind of gave me a big head pretty quick. I was like, oh yeah, like this music thing will happen. I'll just, you know, make a song a month or like make it when I feel like it. And then that was during the SoundCloud days. And then next thing you know, SoundCloud is kind of dying in terms of, you know, in the electronic music scene, it's very much still alive and well, but some stuff like I was doing, hip hop, R&B, pop, kind of blending that, it definitely didn't have that weight that it used to. And so I had a fresh new start on Spotify. And although I felt like my quality was jumping up exponentially, the numbers were going down at like big time. And that was huge. So that was when it really started, when I decided 2021 was when I was doing music for a few years, but I was like, okay, this is something I want to do seriously. And so that journey has really been kind of shedding my ego, swallowing my pride, and, you know, trying to do this for the right reasons, but also take a realistic approach and a business-minded approach to this whole thing. And that's been the journey since then. And it's been really, really interesting. It's been very fulfilling. It's been, to be completely frank, it's been so difficult.
I bet.
But I don't regret a single thing.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
it's good that you recognize how difficult it is, because you're going to fail. And
yeah, that's been, yeah, I'm gonna fail. Go ahead, continue.
And I'm going to, you know, because anyone who does that, they're going to fail, and they're going to, you know, they're going to go through like these hiccups, but the failures aren't final, and they're just kind of hiccups, but they can seem huge, and they go.
Oh no, continue. I'm listening.
And they can like really, like, you know, hurt someone's drive, someone's initiative to like take on this journey. And so one other thing I wanted to ask, you were working in tech then when your buddy got that song that went huge last year. So that must have been a big also motivator for you to go further into it.
Yeah. You know, Nikki, and before I get to that, I will say, we had a conversation about a month or two ago where he mentioned, about a month or two ago when I was like, dude, I'm leaving, like I'm doing music. And he was so stoked for me. And then I was like, dude, this is hard. Like I'm scared. I'm scared and I'm stressed out. And he's like, bro, I feel you 100%. And it in certain ways, it gets even harder. And I didn't know how to process that. And I was like, am I comforted by this, that people understand how I'm feeling? Or am I just or does that make me feel even worse? Because, you know, you always have that idea of like, oh, well, I'll get to a certain spot and everything will be okay. But, you know, once you look at rich people, they make their first million. Like, what's their first thought? My next million, or the 10 million, or, you know, the billion. And I think, but there's something about that kind of sink or swim mentality that really brings the most out of you. So I was thinking about it a lot. And going back to, when that happened, when Nikki started doing well, Nikki actually was working at Dell as a salesman. He was doing sales at Dell. So he did that for a short period of time because I think, you know, things just worked out and he was able to leave, and it was super cool too. So that was another thing. Like, oh, Nikki was doing his thing too. He went to UC San Diego. I know you went there as well. You know, he was doing great. He played water polo there as well. You know, lots of things going on. But you know, I think I saw him put in the grind. He started music a little bit after me, and he just went MIA for like 2 years, except for doing, you know, school or whatever. 2 years, improving his voice, improving everything. Comes back, we're like second year in college, and then he just shows me like these amazing songs, and I was like, wow. So at first, when I found out that, like, oh, and this was even before it blew up, like we were at Aries, one of the guys I mentioned before from Elisa Niguel as well. He had a kind of festival, and he hosted his first annual one in OC because that's where we're from. And there was all the musicians that came out from there, and it was really inspiring. And then Nicky's song didn't blow up yet, but the people in his group in the local scene, they already heard the song and they already knew it was going to blow up. So I was sitting there trying to process it, and I'm so glad. I think because I've been thinking about this for many years, I was so glad that my first thought wasn't like, oh, I would like that should be me instead of him. I'm so glad that wasn't that. There was definitely the thoughts of like, what the hell am I doing with my life if he got there? That was something I had to really deal with for a good while. But one thing I've been realizing as I've been growing up into an adult is that you can take anything in your life and flip it to like a positive thing. And so that's been my focus, and that's why now, when I first thing I brought up with Nikki in this conversation is that like he's inspiring me so much, and he's really helping me drive. He's really driving me, whether or not we're in everyday contact or he's helping me write music or we're working on songs together. Like just the fact that he's doing it has been such a motivator for me.
I can imagine. And I understand what you mean. It's like, it's tough to not compare and to not like, and it's awesome that, you had this like, I have to do better. Not, I wish that could just be me.
Yeah.
But I need to up my game. Like, he's there. There's a possibility I can be there. I need to work. And you saw him like working, went MIA and improved his voice. Like, it takes hard work and a lot of sacrifice to do these types of things that you and Nikki are doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's been a lot. It's been a lot, and mostly positive, and that's why being a musician definitely has its lows. Like I said, I talked to Nikki yesterday. I talked to this multi-platinum mix and mastering engineer, and we still had that conversation that music is tough. Music is hard, and we were able to we were working together. I hired him to mix and master my next track, but then when we were able to kind of have more of a heart-to-heart conversation, you realize that everyone in every field, and not just music, everyone has their own battles, no matter what it looks like on paper. And being able to connect with people like that on a human level has been helping lower the anxiety, lower the stress, and kind of give you that little motivation, like just keep going day by day. It's really day by day, song by song, day by day. And as long as you're improving, then there's a good chance that this could be something for you. And there's also a lot of ways to go in the music industry. Like there's no one path. And that's what's been so hard for me, because I grew up programmed like do this, and you'll get there. And so this has been so freeing, but I'm definitely not used to not having a formula or a template to follow where you just study. So it's been fun. It's been interesting.
That is, and I can understand. You said earlier you were scared, and it's scary to not have that template. And when you want to create, I don't think there's a template for creating novel things that people value. And you also said there's like no real measure of success. And one thing for being an artist, your job never ends. At
Yeah.
least that's what it seems like to me. Like when I look at it, like it's kind of like you can either stop or start, but there's no off or on. There's no like you're in at 9, you're out at 5. It's like you're an artist.
Yeah. And it can, to add on to that, even like in terms of longevity, like when you have a passion for something like something creative, it goes on forever. Let's say, you know, myself as an artist goes really well. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna be that artist forever. Like things are gonna evolve. And I talk to a lot of people in the industry, and a lot of, like, for example, one producer I mentioned before, Matt Mems, he was like, I want to do this artist thing, and then when I'm old, I want to be making music scores. Like I want to make the soundtracks for movies. And I was like, it's all this one ride, but it's just all over the place. And yeah, like you said, I think the main reason why I felt like I wasn't reaching my full potential while I was doing the full-time job was that it doesn't really turn off. And I had to kind of force myself to turn off, because, you know, I can't just like, all right, you know, 10 a.m. I'm gonna write a song real quick and then come back. It doesn't work that way. So I think turning creative passion into a livelihood is the main thing, is finding that balance between relying on that creativity to come, but also putting yourself in a sort of routine or mindset to where you're going to sit at the table and do something, whether it's good or not, whether you feel like it or not. And the more you kind of get that in your head, I think the creativity somehow finds its way to come to you a little bit more naturally. So having that flexibility, being able to go to the studio at 3 a.m. and then I've been blessed because my buddy Jemin, he goes by We Out here. He works at a bunch of studios, so we can work in. I've been having the luxury to get in there in a few studios here in LA, usually late at night, because that's when people cancel or there's openings and stuff like that. And that's where you meet a lot of people. And a lot of this is happening between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. So
Wow.
it just never would have happened, because I would have been asleep, getting ready to wake up at 7 or 8 or 9 to work. So it's been scary, but I see, you know, I don't have any crazy tangible results from the last 2 months, because I can't expect something from 2 months, but I can feel it. Like I can feel like things are different. People are reacting to me differently. I've been lucky to meet some, you know, big names, big producers. I met a few big artists already in these studio sessions, just randomly. And people have been treating me differently in a good way. And I can kind of see that you kind of just have to accept that lifestyle. And once you're in there and this is what's going on in your head 24/7, I think people can kind of see that. You kind of like exude it off yourself. And I will say though, you know, there's always the caveat, but when you can't turn that off, it makes it, you're in your head even more, you know, the overthinking and all that stuff. Like you're really like, you're a lot harder on yourself, I think, because you're like, you know, this is all I have. I saved up a certain amount of money to do this, but I don't, like, there could be a point where I run out and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I'm doing small things on the side. I'm getting into songwriting, which has been great. I've been meeting people for that. I actually, like, as of really recently, been getting some teams, and that's a good way to get a foot in the industry and make money while you're doing it as well, and improve your craft. You know, the more you write, even if it's not for yourself, the better you'll get. But you know, I have that fire under my ass because I'm like, there's a chance where I could just fail and then run out of money. But for some reason, I'm, sometimes I stress out about it, but for some reason, it kind of like, it really, really pushes me. So that's been what I've been adjusting to, I think, the most out of everything.
That, I mean, and the thing is that you're 24. And one thing that I thought about earlier, I don't know if you follow Gary Vee or know about Gary Vee.
Yeah, I know about him. I've definitely know a bit about his, his work and what he talks about. Yeah.
And he mentions, like, if you're 30 and don't have anything accomplished, you're still pretty fine. And you, as a 24-year-old who's pretty hyper accomplished, you graduated, 22, were at a startup for 2 years, tech startup, you liked it, you enjoyed working, which is, again, like you said, a lot of people, younger, millennials, Gen Zers, they're kind of like, I'm really overworking. And that's so, like you said, you can be, that can, you can be hard on yourself when you're trying to do something that's really hard. And it's difficult to maintain a sort of mentality that, like, I don't know, but it's a balance, because like you said, you stress yourself out, but that could be where the creativity comes from. Like you said, when you're just like at the desk working, even though you don't know if you
Yeah.
don't want to be there.
It's such a fine line, and I can't even say that I'm doing it or fully understanding it even 10%. Like, I have a general idea of where I need to get, but that comes with reps and that comes with years. The whole 10,000 hours thing, like, I feel like it's real. And for music, a lot of people say, once you need like 5 to 7 years to even like be in a conversation of like, oh, I can make this happen. And I'm getting to that point, and it's really clicking. But yeah, like I said, it's a really fine line. And what I've been realizing recently is that it's different for the musicians that I know. And so I found that out recently because my roommate is actually a producer, and I always thought, this is the way to do it. We just make it happen, and that's just like been the people around me that I grew up with, just to like flex my friends. Like, I feel like I'm the dumbest kid in the room. My friends are just so smart, so driven, and they're all very successful right now. Like, pretty, like, literally almost all my close friends are very successful in whatever they're doing. And I think being around them, growing up together, was that mindset of like, just do it no matter what, and kind of push through it, even force it sometimes. But I realized, I can't. I can get in here, but I can't expect results every time, and that's kind of how it was growing up. So that's been hard. So it is a very fine line, and I do think it's slightly different for each person. So I'm kind of on the journey to find mine, but I think I'm definitely closer than I was a month ago, and then that was closer the month before. So that's all I can ask for, really. I can't really say a certain outcome of this whole thing is gonna happen or come to fruition, but all I can say is I just want to look back and say I think I did everything I could to try to get me to a spot. So, put all that together, and I think you can kind of make something work out.
Yes, and like you said you're recognizing there are many places to go within the music industry, and you found songwriting and in addition to your music. So how is your approach to songwriting?
Yeah, songwriting in general, it's pretty similar to, for my own stuff, and for songwriting. I'm very green in songwriting for other people. I'm actually really confident that I can do it. It's just been a new process. And like for the first time, literally 2 days ago, I was sitting there with another songwriter writing for someone else. So that's like, okay, you're going to put in what does the artist want that's different from mine? Because obviously they have a different voice than me, they have a different style. And then I'm trying to blend it in with the new songwriter, and like how can we bring out the best of us and combine it, and so I'll start there, but I'll say, generally I kind of have two ways. There's like either you get a beat and you write to it, or what I like to do and why I really am, like, I cannot stress enough how blessed I am to have a team that really believes in me as an artist. I am fortunate enough to be in sessions where we are starting from scratch. And that in most of the times, nine times out of 10, we start with chords and a simple loop of an instrumental. And then from there, sometimes I write with them but most of the time, like the next day or that night, I come in here and I just hit record and I'm just mumbling melodies, like I'm just saying random things, but I'm really, really focusing on the melody, and then seeing how the beat makes me feel, how the music is making me feel. And then it just kind of, and this just comes with reps. Like, I don't know how many thousands of times I've done this, but and I'm still not even close to where I know I can be. And it's just thousands, it's just hours. You're putting in time, you'll get there. But the melody starts to come, and then slowly, like while you're doing it, like a word or two per sentence, most of it's not real words, will come in. And a lot of times, so you do that. I do that a bunch of times. And then I chop the ones that suck, and then I cut bits and pieces, and then here I have like 10, 20 seconds here, or a chorus here, a verse, pre-chorus idea with a couple lyrics in there. And a lot of times they stick, sometimes they don't, but a lot of times those words that come up intuitively end up being part of either the title or the chorus, like the big parts of the song. And it's super interesting about that, because that's like all raw, like coming from there. And then from there, I'll get these melodies down. I'll try to structure the song a bit. I'll fill in the words fast. I call them like, I just call them like throwaway lyrics. But a lot of the times, like a quarter of them end up staying. So I just fill out the mumbles with words, because then you can kind of hear if like, okay, is this good or not? You have to think about syllables, think about how, like what kind of, if it's like an open letter or a closed one, and that actually affects how the melody sounds. Like ending on an open, like an O or like an ah, or like a consonant, it actually can make the song sound better or worse. So then you go into the details, but I'm not too focused on the lyrics yet. And then I'll kind of go back to the producers. We'll come back in, like, what do you think? Sometimes we scratch, sometimes we keep it. But then from there, I go back in and very carefully write out the rest of the lyrics. And then from there, we record, we add to the production, and then we send it out for mix. And then, that's in a nutshell the process. And it could span from a 1 to 2 day process to a 1 year process. Like, for example, my next song, it's called Wait What. I haven't even announced it yet, but it's gonna come out in about a month or a month and a half. That song, the inspiration actually came from a real life situation that happened to me about a year ago in like July 2022. And the idea was there. And then literally 2 days later, somebody came to me with an idea, and all the feelings I felt in that moment just came out, and I was able to just pretty much like tell a story of like, this is what happened in my life. And I think it's really important to go out there and live your life and have experiences. And that's always been hard for me, because I'm outside. I'm like, oh, I should be, I'm wasting my time. Like, I gotta be in the studio. Like, I don't have much to show for myself yet. Like, this isn't, but then, the more time I spend doing this, the more I realize that I need time away, and I need time to have experiences, because as a songwriter, you can't write a good song if you don't have the experiences and emotions to write a song. So if like you can definitely go in there and grind for 1 to 3 months, but then you're gonna run out of material and you're gonna run out of feelings. You're gonna be a robot because you already wrote about all of it. So then you need to go live your life. And so balancing that is part of what I said about balancing earlier, like, you know, just trying to get in here and you know, not quite force things out, but just try and try again. And then living your life, experience things, getting hurt, failing. Because if you think about it, I will say, like, you know, everyone loves an upbeat, catchy song. But if you look at, I would say more than half of them in today's pop charts, and someone I think that stands out the most is like Post Malone, and then maybe like The Weeknd as well. Their songs are so catchy and they're so good, and most of them are very upbeat. But then if you listen to the lyrics, they're pretty like sad.
Yes.
They're pretty sad, and it's because they feel it, and they're able to reach these top levels of music, you know, not only because they have the best teams in the world, but because they feel these emotions and they're able to put it down on a track.
Absolutely. And for Post Malone specifically, I mean, his beat is awesome and it's upbeat, but then like there's so many like the beer bongs and Bentleys. There were so many songs in their circles, and I forget what that album's called, but that song's pretty depressing. And
Yeah, and that was the mega hit of a few years ago. I think that was part of the Hollywood Bleeding album, but it was a mega hit, and nobody even knew. Nobody even knew that it wasn't like, you know, that the tone was actually not what it was. And that's like so interesting. And that's when I realized like melody is king, and that's what everyone in the industry tells me. Melody is king. But you know, to add your flavor, to really make it as you can, that's when the lyrics come in. But people are listening to the melodies, first and foremost. But yeah, so it's very interesting. So it kind of proves a point that these people, you know, I know they go through it. Like these people go through it really hard. And so crazy because they kind of, you know, on paper won at life, but there's a lot of struggles that come with it.
it's very obvious too. I mean, these things that they're talking about, if like there's any sort of truth to them, which there probably is because they're seeing them,
Yeah.
they're very tough challenges.
Yeah. And you know, I'm not them and I'm not a top tier pop artist yet. I'll definitely get there one day.
Yes.
But if they're anything like me, almost every word you write down is something that you feel or have felt, like very legit, like through and through. Like I've gone through this, and those when you can properly execute on expressing your emotions, that's actually the songs that people like the most. And so you pair that with a good instrumental and great melodies, then that's where most of the hits are coming from.
So you mentioned melody is king, and how have you adjusted? Have you adjusted at all your work to that sort of idea, or
Yeah, I have. I for a long time, for the first 2 years of making music, I was just like, I can't write, man. And so for in the beginning, my friends were writing for me. And then at a certain point, I was like, okay, I got to do this on my own. And then the melodies started coming. The melodies, I feel like, is definitely a strength for me as a songwriter. I always had a harder time with lyrics. I'm much better than before, but it's really been, yeah. I think one thing to point out is that like musicians, at a certain point, music is different to you. Like even like you hear on the street, on the radio or whatever, like it changes, and you kind of, it's almost a little sad, but it's just part of the job. Like you lose a bit of that commercial listener, and some people lose it all. I've been blessed where I don't think I've quite done that. A lot of producers just like can't listen to a song as a fan, as like a listener anymore. For me, it's a blend, but like a blend between you know, for fun, for enjoyment, and kind of analytical. So you kind of study these songs, and As of so, and then as of very recently, the two things that have been kind of helping me up that game has been being in the studio with these people. Some of these sessions that I've got into, I don't say a word. Like studio etiquette is so big in the industry. That's what it makes and break. And I'm so glad. I feel like, you know, in terms of connecting with people and building relationships, that's always been a strength of mine, even just having conversations. So some people go in there, they're immediately like, oh, they start playing their music, and then they're never invited again. So that's like, and like when you don't say a word the whole session, that means that there's people in there and you have stuff to learn from. And so you just shut up and you listen, and you come out of there a better musician. And so that's been the main one. And another one is actually my buddy who's an engineer, recording engineer, mixing engineer. He's been sending me books, which I never thought, like, you know, I definitely know that books are good. I've read a lot of books. But for some reason I thought in music, like, it wouldn't really translate as well, because it's, like I said before, it's very like emotion based and feeling based, and like everyone has their own journey, blah, blah, blah. But I've been reading books from accomplished songwriters, and how they do it. This one specifically, the book is called Mastering Melody Writing, by Clay Mills. He's a pretty successful songwriter, and the reason that it clicked for me was because he would talk about something, and then he would literally like pull up the music. He has the lyrics here, and then like watch it come into practice. And then so that's really like I think the word he calls, and so to answer the whole question, I do something now that he refers to as inspired listening. And that is basically listening to music with a purpose. And that has been helping me kind of try to up my melody game and just make better music as a whole. So long answer that could be short. The answer is inspired listening, but I kind of wanted to build up to there.
No, I appreciate the more, you know, with a little bit more information, that answer. And so you mentioned that some producers. So what was that word that what was the title of the book, and what was that type of listening?
Mastering Melody Writing. That's what the book is called. Mastering Melody Writing by Clay Mills. And I have another book. I'm reading a different book right now, but after that, I'm going to another book by the same guy about co-writing. So I think that would be huge for me, because I'm really, really new to co-writing. So that's what it's called. And then his term is called inspired listening. Yeah, inspired listening.
Okay. And inspired listening, and you mentioned that some producers, like, they can't be commercial listeners. Is there inspired listening and being, you know, a bit too analytical to enjoy commercial music? Is there a little overlap there, or do you see them
100%.
as?
I think like a lot of these producers, and the reason is that the producers a little bit more than the writers is because every song I make, I've heard it thousands of times. But the producer, most of the time, like, multiply that by 5 at least. Like, if you like going into a session and like being someone that doesn't make music and going into a session at a studio might sound like super, super cool, and it could be. But if you're in there where you're really like, okay, we're gonna finish this track and we're gonna work on it very detailed, it's just a loop of the same thing over and over again, and you're making slight tweaks. So I would say a lot of these producers, they're like too good at inspired listening in a way. Like, and a lot of producers and mix engineers, those are the two main ones. They just take it to the too extreme. Like, they analyze it so hard that it's hard for them to just enjoy a song. Like, they can't just, like, when you listen to a song, most people are just hearing it instead of listening. And like, there's definitely a difference there. And inspired listening is taking that to the next level. So, you know, I definitely don't have the answer, and I hope I never get to a point where I can't enjoy music anymore. But I'm not saying they don't enjoy music. It's just, it definitely gets to a point where a lot of times they're just like, it's just like really, really just a piece of content or a product, like a product instead of a inspired creative work of art. So it's interesting, and I hope I don't get there, but we'll see.
Yes, I that's interesting you say that, because I'm, reading about Steve Jobs, and he talks about all of his stuff. Like, he says it's a product, but he also has great passion, and I'm not sure, but I mean, it's it's a fine line, like you mentioned, and it can definitely go either way.
Yeah. So I think the main goal of most creatives is to, no matter how crazy things you get, no matter how successful you get, it's like to always go back to that first feeling of like, wow, this is me. Like, I always strive to go back to that room, my buddy's room in my neighborhood, and we would be in that tiny room with like a really jank setup. And it's like 100 degrees in the room because it's just so small and the air's not on and all that stuff. And we're making like bad music, especially in the beginning. But that, if for some reason, it was just like the most fun thing I've ever done in my life. And part of me, I know I try not to like linger on the past and nostalgic feelings, but I would say I'm a pretty like sentimental person where I definitely think back. But there's a small part of me deep down that always tries to get back to those feelings, and to mix those feelings. And it does come in just different levels, but mix that experience with a level of professionalism. And so that's the goal. And I think everything I've mentioned about the whole music process is like taking something, an idea that's a little more raw, an idea that's a little more fine-tuned, and then kind of putting that blend in to get the most out of you as an artist or a musician or whatever.
Okay. And you mentioned the professionalism. Are there anything in networking or the industry that, has really stood out that you learned that you weren't aware of before?
Yeah, as of recently, this isn't everybody, but I realize a way that people, you kind of get one shot for some, like people get a first impression is very important, very, very important. So sometimes in the studio, sometimes it's outside, like usually on a night out. And in the studio, like I said, the studio etiquette, if you kind of blow it that first time, they're never going to talk to you again. So that's one thing. And the other thing is like when you're outside, it's a little different because you're not making music or talking about music as much. You're really just they really like gauge your like personality, or whether they think you have it or not, or literally if you're a cool person or not on that first night. And on a night out, that usually involves going out and partying. And that's been different for me because I've never been like a huge person on like I don't really like, I don't do like drugs and things like that. I go out and I drink alcohol, but a lot of other drugs are involved, and that's been very new to me. And it seems like sometimes like it's like, oh, to get them to like you need to like try something or do something. But I'm trying to, I've so far, and I think, I have like certain things that I feel like I don't want to change about my character. So when it comes to that, I feel like I'm just going to be myself, and try not to think like, oh, if I don't do this, you're not going to like me. It's been interesting because I realized that how big of how much that kind of stuff plays in the industry. And I think it's like entertainment industry as a whole. It's been new. So, I definitely love to go. I love to party, but trying to figure out like, I just still want to make sure I'm me when I'm out there. So that's been interesting. But the main thing is that studio etiquette. Like when you get opportunities in music, they come out of nowhere. And so you just need to be prepared. You need to be prepared, and you need to be you. I think so many people try to present themselves as like someone that's just really, I don't know, like oh, like I deserve this. And I definitely was like that at some point, but now it's more like you usually just chop it up at first. Like sometimes they don't even know what you do, or even if you're in, usually because you're in the studios, you're in music, but like they don't even really know what you do. You kind of talk at first, and then maybe like a conversation comes up, and then they're like, oh yeah, I worked on that, or like, oh, I make that kind of thing, and then like, oh, can I hear it? So it's like it's an art. And this is like the business side I was talking about that I never did at all while I was working the full-time job. So that's the new things. And the other thing I mentioned it before, but I'll go back to it just for a bit, is that no matter where they are, if they're a superstar or they're very successful or they're day one, everyone goes through their own kind of struggles in the industry. But I think I'm learning more that like that's okay, because it really pushes people, and that's life. It's hard to accept, but life just comes with its trials and tribulations. So learning how to navigate that, learning how to be okay with things that happen out of your control. That's actually another thing I've been really focusing on. It's like you do what you can, and then the results or whatever, like the results happen, you can't control that, but you can control what you can control. And that's like a big teaching of like literally going back to the ancient philosophers, like the Stoics. It's so funny, like, because I've been researching that a bit too recently, because this has been like a whole life journey this year. Like I've been really trying to evolve into my best self. But the Stoics lay down everything, and it seems so easy. Like like you said, like a main point is like you can't control the outcomes, but you can control, you can make certain decisions. There are things you can't control. And like the biggest teaching is like, you just got to let go of what the result is, even if it's really good or really bad. And then you just got to keep going and move on. It definitely applies. But the thing is, it's easier said than done, of course. All of these teachings, in theory, like you would be perfect person, really happy, really satisfied with life. And then it's just like, what can you do in your life to kind of get to a spot where you can kind of take in these teachings and just be fulfilled and happy with yourself. So, and part of that, I think the main thing is like doing something that you love. And I know a lot of people in their early 20s or 30s that they go like, I'm going to kind of throw away a few years and just kind of be miserable for a bit to get to certain, and then I can do something after. I'm not saying that's wrong, because a lot of people come out successful like that. I don't know really what's the best option. Like I said, it's different for everyone. But I think for me, there was a kind of a point where I had to I think I did it well. I saved up for a year, 2 years, and then I could do it. It would have been kind of hard to just, like, I think if I just started right away after college, I would have been like, doing like being like a waiter or something like that. And then, so there's always the sacrifices. I decided I wanted to utilize my degree and kind of my intellectual journey up into that point to try something, but also try that. And then when I felt it was time to move on, I did. And I think maybe that's kind of the takeaway there. It's just, you can always try things, and then you might not like it, or you might like it and realize it's not your thing. And then you kind of just have to move on and try something new. And I think that's kind of what life is about, especially 20s and 30s for sure.
Yes, and you got, like you said, try it, and you don't have that regret. You can put it to the side, and if you never go back to it, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
also something that you said, authenticity is huge. And if you're not maintaining like your values, and if you're not living in accordance with your values, like say if you did do those drugs, you didn't even want to do them, you did them to be cool, that's not who you are, then you might have like a serious addiction problem after that. And it's just, instead, you might, that some people might see you in that scene, say, oh, he's wants to be whatever, and those people might not like you, but at least you can go to sleep, wake up the next day, know that you were authentic person.
Definitely. And especially drugs is like, there's a lot of consequences that could happen, good or bad in certain instances. But like, yeah, if somebody, even if they're like, oh, they could really change my life. If somebody won't vibe with you because you don't do something that you don't want to do, I think that already says enough. Like, you'd rather be around the people that are like, you do your thing. And then if I do my thing and you do your thing and it kind of intertwines and aligns, then that's where like the real good stuff comes out of. You not to say that you can't work with somebody that you don't like or whatever, because that definitely happens too, and you can still make magic. But um, in the kind of organic approach that I've been trying to take in the past few years, it just, yeah, the I'm just trying to be me as much as possible.
That makes sense. Mezzo, William, thank you so much for taking the time to record. Could you let our audience, well, two things. One, are there any last words you'd like to leave our audience? And also, can you let our audience know where they can find your music?
Great. Yeah. So I don't know. Any last word, last statements, I guess, is I said a lot of things today, but maybe I don't know any of the answers, and that's okay. But I think the whole thing is trying and trying to appreciate the journey. So whatever you're doing in your life, just make sure that you're enjoying it, or it's part of a process. Like, and remember, like, you can always try new things, and that's okay. And there's never like a deadline. Other than that, yeah, you can find me on everywhere streaming services under Mezzo, Mezzo. And then you can find me on social medias as Sono Mezzo, which is SONOMEZZO. No space, nothing like that, just at Sono Mezzo. And yeah, I'm there. Feel free, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. And Karush, I would love to talk another time, just get to know you better, because my brother said so many good things about you. And yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much for having me. This was a great conversation. I love like verbalizing things. I feel like, like teaching people things and just getting it out, it really helps you understand somehow. But it's been a great conversation. Appreciate you having me on here.
My guest today has been Mezzo. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Mezzo.
Yeah. Peace.